Coming up on the Amazing Art Show, lots of layers. We are doing a project today called Lots and Lots of Layers. And I'm going to be all over the road today. I'm just going to go ahead and warn you. I've got a project that's on one kind of a surface. I'm going to be working on another. And I've pretty much have pulled everything from my magical stock of supplies. And so I'm not even sure if I'm going to really get into showing you every single little thing. I'll just kind of touch on it if I grab it. But I'm going to go over a few basics. I am working on a small canvas, and you can definitely do that. If you do not have a canvas, you could work on a piece of cardboard. If you work on the cardboard, you're going to need to coat it with some gesso. So I don't have to do this on my canvas because it's already coated. So if you are going to do the other, then you would want to grab that. You're going to also need some kind of a matte medium, or Mod Podge would work okay as well. And then you are going to need like some tissue paper, something like that. Interesting papers, just patterns. Print out some words that you like, that are fun. And you might want to grab, I've got several different kinds of ribbon. I've even got some thread. I grabbed some buttons. I've got some little hearts that are cut out of just scrap fabric. So you could do that with paper if you don't have the fabric. I've also got a little clay bird. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that clay bird, but he's cute. And then I've just got some other, some paint, brushes, that kind of stuff. I've grabbed some ribbon. So you might want to grab some kind of ribbon, and then just your regular stuff like glue and scissors and paintbrushes and water and that kind of stuff. So this project you can really modify a lot. So let's get started. All right, so on my canvas, the first thing that I'm going to do, I've actually got, these are called acrylic paint dabber tools. And it's basically just acrylic paint that is inside, it's inside here. And so you can really just kind of rub it onto your canvas. And so I'm going to use that. You have to kind of push down on it a little bit. And it dries pretty quick, which is another thing that I like about it a lot. And we really kind of want to keep our color kind of watercolory, transparent, not super, opaque. So we want a little bit see-through. So even with this, even as light as it is, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to use a paper towel, and I'm just going to kind of dab it a little bit. And that's going to give me a really awesome texture too when I do that. So I'm picking up from the paper towel just some of the dots. And then I've left some other areas so that I could do a different color. I'm going to come in with some green. And I'm just going to add that in a little bit of places, just a little bit. And I will leave some places that are just plain white. You're just putting a little bit of color onto your board or your canvas, whichever one you're working with. And I'm just going to kind of move that around and thin it up a little bit. Okay, next thing, I'm going to grab my tissue paper, and I just kind of grabbed whatever I had. So I've got like metallic here, which is pretty awesome. I've got some leopard print, and so I think I'm gonna start there, and you just kind of want to pull off a piece, and you want to leave your edges torn, so don't cut it because it looks weird if you have it all perfectly straight. And I also am going to go ahead with my piece of cardboard that I have here, and I'm going to tear a piece of that off as well. But I'm going to take it and separate the pieces. And you're going to pull off that top layer. Sometimes it comes off really, really easy, and sometimes it doesn't. This piece is being a tad bit stubborn. Ah, there we go. That's a little bit better. And sometimes like one side of it will pull better than another. So if you're having trouble on one side, go to the other one. Sometimes that helps. All right, so I'm just kind of laying my composition out at the moment. I'm not gluing anything yet because I don't know if that's exactly where I want to keep it. So right now I'm just kind of building all of my layers, which is what our project is about today. So layers are something that artists use a lot. It gives your artwork depth, gives it a lot of interest, gives it a lot of texture, and so it's just one of those really great things to have in your art, for sure. Now, one thing I will tell you, whenever you start, and you can pull, like when I said papers, seriously, you can pull whatever you have. This is like a note card. And once again, I want those torn edges. I'm going to do this one going vertically. I've got graph paper in here, and I'm going to use a little bit of that. So I'm just going to tear off a couple pieces of that. And make sure that, you know, some are skinny, some are a little bit bigger. And then I think I want a pattern paper. And I think I like that. That's pretty straight though. I've got on this side, I've got green polka dots, and I've got like keys on the other side. So I think I'm gonna go with the keys showing. And then I think I may do another little piece of that, but then I think I'm also going to do a little bit of the other as well. And I'm trying to kind of work in my areas where I've got my white areas that are left showing. And whenever you're working with layers, remember, like some pieces are going to rest on top, some will be underneath. And so as you're working, you kind of look at it kind of like with the weaving, how it's over, under, over, under. You don't want like all of these, like I've got these right here going, you know, horizontally, and I don't want them all to be underneath this one. So think about making it interesting by maybe putting something else that goes over the top of that, that, you know, you might not have thought about at first. So think about, you know, tucking some underneath, because that gives your piece some visual interest. Okay, so I've kind of got things laid out how I want, but I also wanted to incorporate some of this lace. So I'm going to, now that I've kind of got my papers where I think I want them, I'm going to take my lace and I'm just going to do a couple little pieces of it. They're not going to go all the way across by any means. And one thing that my kids at school do a lot is they just, I don't know why, but it's very much hurry and get it done. And, you know, art's not something that you want to rush. You want to take your time and you want to make it look the best that you can. So also, just because you put the paper down on there like that to begin with doesn't mean it has to stay that way. If you don't like it, rearrange it, because now's your time to make it work. Okay, so I've kind of got things how I want them. I think I want one more piece of this green paper just to balance out what I have over here. So I'll probably do that somewhere in here maybe, and then I think I'm going to do another little piece kind of up there. So that's kind of what I have going, all right? Okay, now gluing things on. You're going to be using different things for different pieces. If it is a piece of paper, you're going to use the matte medium or the Mod Podge, whichever one you have. And if it is something like lace or the cardboard that's a thicker type of a thing, you can use the tacky glue that we've used on here before. It works really well. You'll have to kind of spread it out, but it works okay. All right, so now I'm going to move my lace, and I'm just going to kind of work in my places where I have the paper. And I actually just kind of grabbed everything all together in one hand and lifted it up. This doesn't have to be like super precise. And I'm just going to lay it down. And we've collaged on the show before. Remember that I want you to put a layer of the glue down, whichever glue it is that you're using, and then you're going to do a little layer that goes over the top. And that kind of seals everything and gets it to lay down flat. And if you're doing something that's going to go over those, it's the same process. It doesn't matter if you've already got a layer on there, just to make sure. And tissue paper will have a tendency to want to kind of bubble up, and if it does that, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. And I'm just kind of moving things around as I work. And then if I need to go back and add more, I can always lift up and add some more underneath there if I need to. And I'm going back over it. Don't forget, especially when you're layering your pieces, you need to go underneath as well. All right. And as you're doing this, a lot of times I also have my kids that glob on the Mod Podge or the matte medium, whichever one it is that you're using. You want this to be like the thinnest layer ever. So really get it thin, really spread it out. Don't let it be gloppy. And try to get it down as smooth as you can. And if you happen to get like a huge air bubble in there and you need to get it out, you can always just lift up, just pull the piece of paper back up again, and then as you lift it up and you're working it out, you're going to kind of pull down or pull away from wherever the bubble is, and it'll kind of help get everything to stick. I'm kind of rearranging my composition as I'm going, just because it's a little easier. I'm kind of trying to work in places I've already got my stuff. And then, okay. All right, so I'm just about done with this part. I'll lay that on there. Like I've got an air bubble right here. It's not sticking. I'm going to pull it up. If I can get my fingers on it, put a little more glue underneath there. And then as I brush it, I'm going to brush it, the air out. Definitely want to get that one on there. That little green one gives some good balance, so I want to put that one on there. All right, so now we're going to go quickly to my thicker pieces that I have. These, you're going to get your glue, and remember this tacky glue, it is like super, super thick, and so it takes a little bit of time for it to roll down, but you're just going to kind of disperse the glue on there. It does not have to be totally covered, but I would definitely make sure that you get your edges. And a lot of times on your cardboard, you've pulled it off of a box or something like that. Make sure that if it happened to have packing tape or something like that on there, that you pull that off, because it will not allow it to stick. I mean, it might stick temporarily, but it's not going to stick for very long. So I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to do my lace. Your lace, just kind of hold it in your hand, and I just kind of dab my glue. I try to get right on the edges, and I try to do a little bit in the middle. You don't have to totally coat it. And sometimes even after I do that, I just kind of rub my finger over it and kind of smooth it a tad bit. Okay, and then if you've got anything that's like really sticking up, try to get that to go down. And also you can, once you've got this kind of glued on with the tacky glue, you can also go back over it with the Mod Podge or your matte medium. That'll work too. All right. Liking that. Okay, so this is what I've got so far. Lots of layers. I've got some things that are more flat. I've got some things that are a little more rough and bumpy. And so I'm going to move on to adding a tad bit more color. And let me show you how you can do this. You can do it several different ways. If you've got just regular acrylic, you can use that. I've got these that are like inks that you could use as well. And so I actually think I may just do a tad bit, if I can get it open. There we go. I'm going to do just a little bit, and I'm actually going to turn it where you guys can see this. I'm just going to kind of dribble it over my lace a little bit. Now, if you do not have any of these inks that are kind of in the squirt bottle like this, you can get your watercolors and kind of have the same effect. Just get it real watery, and I'm even going to do a few little pieces and just let it kind of drip. Don't stop, keep going. And I'll kind of tap it to work it down a little bit. Now, I don't want to have it so heavy with that here and not have any down at the bottom. So I'm just going to do some dripping my way just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. And like I said, if you don't have those, just like regular watercolors will work perfectly fine. Just, you're going to get it real watery, tap your brush up at the top and just kind of keep it moving, kind of like I did before. Okay, so now we can move on to the part where you're just kind of grabbing this, that, and whatever. So, of course, I found my words, amazing art. I didn't have show. Man, I wish I did. But I'm just going to go with amazing art, are going to be my 2 words that I decide to use on there. And I've grabbed a couple of buttons, like I said before. And also, if you want to, you could come back with some more of the lace and you could do more on top or a different kind. I can't get this button off this table. Here we go. All right, so I want to kind of think about, you know, where I might want to place these things because, and you can layer them if you want. That yellow one's kind of cute. But also think about, remember how I told you that I had these little heart shapes? You know, you might want to do those on top of the buttons, or I'm sorry, the buttons on top of those, I should say. But you kind of want to just kind of move it around, look at placement, where does it show up the best? And this is kind of the part where you just get to kind of go crazy and add some cool stuff to your work. The other thing I was going to show you, and Mom or Grandma would probably be more than happy to let you use a little bit of this. It's just plain thread. And you're going to take it, and this sounds really weird, but it looks really cool once you do it. And you just kind of roll some off. You want quite a bit. And then snip it. And then you're going to take it and just kind of wad it up. That's the official term, wad it up. And go back with your matte medium, wherever you think you might want it. I think I'm going to go right here. And just kind of put some matte medium down. And just start kind of laying the thread down in it. And it seems kind of weird, but it really ends up looking really cool because the thread looks kind of curly and weird. And then just kind of, you can't really get it to go all the way down, but you want to kind of tap it down in places so that you try to get it as flat as possible. All right. And then it looks really cool to come back in with buttons, or you might want to do your little, I've got glue all over my hands, your little heart shapes. On top of that will look really, really nice. And it just, once again, it just is more layers and it gives it more depth. So I'm kind of thinking, I think while I'm thinking about where I want to put that, I'm going to grab my black Sharpie, and these are my gelatos, which is just another supply that I have. And I'm just going to rub these on here just a little bit, just to give it a tad bit of color. Just to kind of take down a little bit of the starkness of the words. And they're not really like a oil pastel, but you could use oil pastels if you have those. You could definitely use those. Just remember, if you're going to do the oil pastel, I would do if you're going to do Sharpie, kind of like how I'm doing, I'm kind of going to outline around mine real quick, just to make the word kind of stand out. Do the Sharpie first, and then do your oil pastels, because it will ruin your Sharpies if you get them in oil pastels. And so it looks kind of like that. And then I want to kind of think about where I want to put that. And I'm just kind of running. I'm not being real super precise about my marker, but I'm just kind of going around because it kind of frames the word. Looks good. All right, last couple things. We talked about how I had some ribbon, and I also have a little, I don't know what you call this, it's a little doomie-dod, and it has a number on it. And so that's also kind of will add a lot of interest to your work as well. And don't forget my little bird. I kind of think I want to add him right there, because I think that little cardboard looks like a little nest. All right, so I think what I'm going to do, I'll move this down here. I'm going to figure out my placement. And while I'm figuring out my placement, why don't you guys check out today's quote? Fine art is that in which the hand, the head, and the heart of man go together. Art critic John Ruskin. Okay, so we're back. I've kind of arranged things how I want them. So now it's just kind of going back and kind of putting my glue and putting things where I want them. A couple things that I wanted to mention to you. Whenever you are trying to, I want my words to stand out. And so when I was placing my other objects, I kind of kept in mind, you know, ways to draw attention to, you know, my words. So I've got amazing is up kind of very much at the top of my page. And I'm going to put a little button by it, which will also kind of draw your attention. But also, I ended up gluing down a little piece of that ribbon that I showed you that was, it's like a measuring tape. And I've got that vertically going down. And so that's going to go down to my bird, which is another thing that I wanted to draw your eye to. And I ended up putting my bird on that piece of, that kind of on top of that little piece of cardboard. And I said that it kind of reminded me of a nest. So then I got my other little buttons here, and I'm going to kind of use those like little eggs. So my little bird is kind of sitting on top of some little eggs, which once again, it draws your eye. I think I'm going to take I'm kind of layering my buttons on top of each other as well. And I also came in and I pulled some of this kind of burlappy looking ribbony stuff, and then I actually pulled it apart. So I pulled off little strands of it, and then I'm actually going to take those strands and I'm going to use them here in a second. But I'm going to put some glue on the back of my piece here. And a lot of this, depending on where you get it, this was specifically supposed to be for ribbon, so it's got this backing on it, but a lot of times you can get it where it doesn't have the backing on it, and it unravels a lot easier than this. And then I've got one of my little fabric hearts, and that's going to go down on top of the burlap. Once again, I'm creating all of those layers, and I'm going to kind of put that at an angle. And then I just really like numbers and letters and things, so I'm just going to add that into my work as well. I'm going to kind of put that there. I don't really like the colors that are right there, so I'm going to kind of a trick. I'm going to cover that up a little bit. And then I'm going to come down, and I did some more of that, just the thread. And I also ended up adding another piece of ribbon that ran right along here. Once again, it's like as your eye kind of moves over to things, it kind of helps direct your eye in a way. And so I've got art there, and I think I'm pretty good. And then last but not least, and this is on a strictly if you want to kind of a basis, if you've got any kind of empty areas that you don't want to have empty, you can obviously go back in and add a little bit more. Oh man, I wanted to use this. I'm lifting this back up. I'm throwing these down there. I really like these little fuzzy things. So I'm just gonna slap some glue on top of there and kind of add those down on there. Kind of messy like. And then put my art back on top. All right, but not upside down. There we go. All right. So like I was saying, if you've got any empty spots, you can come back in and you can fill it if you would like, or you can also leave it. You know, having some empty spots will give places for your eye to rest, so that works as well. So this, I told you I was going to be kind of all over the road today, and I think I've proven that. But I also wanted to show you, this is another example for those of you that maybe want to do the cardboard. So the cardboard, you can pull off the pieces like we talked about earlier, and it exposes some really nice texture, and then it's just the same kind of concept. You're coming in, you're gluing down different pieces of paper. There's that burlap again that you see. I've got my little fabric hearts, and I've got my words, did some circles. I put some more of that dye on my lace that's up here. So you can really go all out with this, and you don't have to have an expensive canvas to put it on. You can really just do cardboard and it turns out great. So I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. Now go out and make some amazing art.